All right, everybody. Good morning. I hope everyone has their caffeine. I know there's a bunch of coffee shows that people do in the mornings. I'm usually more of an afternoon guy when it comes to shows. Worst case scenario, I'm like an 11 o'clock guy, but I had something pop up at 1. We had this originally scheduled for 1 today. Marcus is having an award ceremony at school, first grade. It's a huge, prestigious honor, so we got to make sure we're there. So I'll be there with Marcus for that. But then wanted to get Sam on, so I was like, "Hey man, you tell me when you're ready. I'll make it happen." He said 9:30, so here we are. Sam Watts, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Not much. I'm just, yeah, I got my coffee right here as well. Although this, like you said, it's not a coffee show, so I won't bring it up. But yeah, no, it's great to be on here though. I watched a handful of your podcasts. I love them, and yeah, just thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate you reaching out and coming on. When this thing first started, I was having to reach out to a bunch of people just to get anybody to come on, right? And then, so now it's really cool to have people reach out, want to come on, tell their story, speak to their expertise and stuff. And something that you do that I really have no clue about, other than trying to get carriers turned on, is safety and compliance.
Yep.
So I would love for you to kind of give your spiel, where you're at, what you're doing, and kind of how your day to day works.
Yeah, so I'm working at a trucking company here called Etchberger Trucking, and we are out of a town called Freeport, Illinois. And as we were talking beforehand here, that is not Chicago. Okay, Illinois is much bigger than Chicago. In fact, most of Illinois, this might be a little trade secret or what amongst us Illinoisans, but we would actually like to get rid of Chicago. But regardless, it's there, and it has good museums, so we go into it. But no, we're out of Freeport, Illinois, which is 2 hours straight west. I'm like right in that northwest corner of Illinois. But we're a tanker company, and so they brought me on pretty recently to do some safety stuff for them, and obviously with tanker stuff, there's a lot of safety to do. But with all trucking, there's a lot of safety, and it's kind of funny because Gunnar, you are very I don't want to say typical because you're not a typical human being. You're a very, very great human being. But typically, a lot of people don't pay attention to the safety. I know I did it. I've been in trucking since 1998, and I've done everything from operations to billing and accounting and IT and now safety. And I can say that when I was in those other departments, I didn't care about safety, and it's kind of crazy when you think about it because safety is one of those aspects that will get you shut down quicker than anything else. I mean, operations, you can always find another load. There's always things to bill and always accounting things to do. But if you don't keep up with your safety and your compliance with that, you can be in big trouble. And the thing is, you don't really know when it could happen because if your truck or any of your vehicles get into an accident, a bad accident, DOT will come in pretty quickly and look at all your safety stuff. And if you don't have that in line, they're not going to be too happy with you.
Yeah, and you have to keep these trucks on the road and you have to keep everything under compliance. And one of the issues that I think a lot of brokers have, because that's what I can speak to, that's my past, and more not on the sell side, I don't really deal too much with the carriers, but when I was on the carrier side, when I first started, you know, it was one of those things like we just wanted to be able to turn carriers on as fast as possible. Like, let's check their stuff. Are they satisfactory? Do they have all their everything they need? Cool. All right, we got this load picking up in an hour, and this is the only guy that's giving us a good rate. We got to go with this guy. All right.
Yep.
So hey, somebody press the button, and then I mean, I'll give some insider baseball, but like people would have codes, and people that had codes would be like approved, right?
Yeah.
They would do
Yep.
the safety job. And it wasn't until probably my third year, maybe fourth year in logistics, that the company that I was at previous was starting to explode. And they're still exploding now, and they're huge now. But that's when they got the safety and compliance, manager in that was coming in and going back in and doing a backlog on all the carriers that we had already in the system, and then was turning people off, like was saying, hey, we can't use this carrier anymore. And it's like, well, hey, this is one of our top 10 carriers, and they do a really good job. Yeah, I understand that, but they got some loose ends to tie up. We can't use them anymore. And then you're having to have conversations with the carriers and walking them through it, and they don't know. They don't know that they're not complying with these things, and they're actually, some of them are good carriers. So do you see that oftentimes, or like a good carrier can also not be safe and compliant, but not understand that they're not being safe or compliant? Is that a thing?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. Because, I don't remember the exact stat off the top of my head, but it's like 90 to 95% of carriers out there are 5 trucks and under. So, I mean, these are guys who are running their own carriers. It's a one-man show. And I know because I was a part of that for quite a while. I ran a small fleet myself. So I feel like I have a good understanding of the safety and operations piece because I did operations for a number of years. That's what I was. I was an operations guy. And kind of like what you're talking about, someone would come in and say, "Hey, you guys aren't safe. We're not going to use you." I would get really mad at them. I'd be like, "What are you talking about? We don't do this. We don't have major fatal accidents. We're fine." But what people don't realize is that there's these little CSA safety scores along the way, and for every little tick you get on that, it just boosts your safety score, which is not a good thing. And so you could be a pretty decent carrier, a good carrier, pick it up on time, no big accidents, running good freight at good rates, but still not technically be a safe carrier. And yeah, that happens a number of times. It happened to me when I was running a fleet. We had a broker say, "No, can't give this to you because I forget what the number was, but you're over our threshold." And it really made me mad because I was like, "What do you mean over your threshold? Like, who are these ghosts out there giving these safety scores out because I want to meet them?" Well, turns out it's the federal government and they really don't want to meet you. But, so it was just kind of like, how do we figure out how to get this, back down to a good level? And yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of people like that because as I said in a video I created a while back there, safety doesn't create revenue. It does not create revenue in a trucking company. So a lot of people, and I completely understand this, a lot of people don't pay attention to it just because they have to pay attention to the stuff that does create revenue. Because if you're running a small fleet, even a large fleet, I mean, money is important. Cash is king, is what they always say. And especially if you're running a small fleet, you don't have time to worry about safety. Unfortunately, that's just kind of where it's at. You have to keep booking the next load and the next load and the next load. And what a lot of these small carriers don't realize is that they're basically kind of playing Jeopardy. Like I said, I've heard of a couple, I'm not going to name names, but I've heard of a couple carriers that unfortunately they got into a fatal accident and, DOT came in and they were gone. They were shut down, and so it does happen. And that's what a lot of these small carriers, they might realize it. I mean, I always knew it, but it was just one of those where you just kind of pay attention to this and hope that this doesn't happen. Well, you can get away with that for so long, but, DOT will catch up to you eventually. So it's good to, like I always say on my site here, it's good to at least have an understanding of what safety is. So that way you kind of have a basic idea. You don't have to know it inside and out because to be honest with you, I don't care how long you've been in this industry. No one's going to know safety completely inside and out. It's quite vast and it changes quarterly. So, I mean, we've seen recently, in 2020 where they did the exemption and then they kept extending it. And then this was exempted. Now this is not. And, it can get very confusing. And for these small carriers, they really don't have time or the manpower to really pay attention to the safety aspect of it.
And what's the most important aspect to safety and compliance? Like when you come into a company and you take over as their safety and compliance manager, what's the most efficient thing you can do? Like what's the most effective thing you can do for that company?
Well, they need to make sure that they have kind of their files in order. So the big thing that you'll see out there is driver qualification files. That's one of the first things that DOT will look at is your driver qualification files. Are they up to date? First off, are they complete? There's off the top of my head, I want to say there's like 9 or 11 pieces of documents that need to be in it, like the driver application, the annual MVR. One thing a lot of people don't realize is you have to run an MVR, motor vehicle report, for every driver every year, once a year. And a lot of times guys will do that because you need to do it to onboard a driver. They'll run the MVR and then they'll forget about it. Well, unfortunately, driver records change, throughout the year. So you have to run that. So you got to have an MVR in there. You got to make sure you have their DOT physical in there. You have to have a copy of their CDL. And there's probably a couple more that I'm forgetting about, but that's kind of the big thing. When I look at a company, that's kind of the first things I look at is driver qualification files. Are the guys that we are putting out on the road, A, supposed to be on the road, and B, safe, are going to be safe out on the road? Because you would be amazed at how many times that a guy's out there driving with a expired CDL or an expired physical card, or I've even seen not here, not where I'm currently at, but I've seen in my past, guys running around on suspended CDLs. So it's like you can't have these guys out there. This is extremely dangerous. And quite honestly, I don't know how they do it, to be honest, because if you get pulled in a weigh station, I would think that they would look at that right away, but maybe not. I don't know.
Right.
So that's kind of the first thing I would look at is driver qualification files. Is it all there? Are the guys that we have on our fleet safe? And should they be on the fleet? And, if we need to update some stuff, let's update it. Let's get those up to speed. So that'd be the first thing. But then secondly, one thing that a lot of people maybe don't realize or they don't pay attention to or whatever is the maintenance piece. So DOT, when you get pulled in at a scale or anything like that, DOT will want to see your maintenance on the truck and the trailer. And if you don't have updated maintenance, so an example would be, we had this issue at a previous company I was working at. We had trailer brake issues. For some reason, a lot of our guys would let their trailer brakes get down to the point where they weren't passing inspections. And so what happens when DOT catches one or two of those, they put it on your DOT number that, hey, this company doesn't, have good brakes on their trailers. So if another guy gets pulled in at a scale, then he'll get pulled in, they'll look up the DOT number and say, oh, let's go check the trailer brakes and see. So we had like 4 or 5 trailers that would get put out of service because these guys, we got flagged for these trailer brake things because these guys weren't telling us that they need them fixed, which is a whole another story. But the thing is then, if you get pulled in for trailer brakes and you get, tagged as one that needs it, either A, they're going to make a guy come to you at the scale house, or B, they're going to make sure they're going to say, you need to go get this fixed right away. And that'll stay on the record. And so if you go to the next scale house and get pulled in, they're going to see that, hey, this guy had a trailer brake issue. What are they looking like now? And if they're still bad, well, then you're in really big trouble. But if you have the receipt that, hey, we got this fixed, here's it is, then they'll say, okay, good, now you're good to go. That seems to be a piece that a lot of people maybe don't pay attention to, is the maintenance part of safety as well, because it's one thing to have the driver safe out there, but these are really big machines that cost a lot of money and are very heavy and could do some serious damage, as we've all seen, if they were to get into an accident. So DOT wants to make sure that the vehicles out there are also safe to be out there. So the driver qualification files, the maintenance are kind of the two big pieces. Are these in order? And then you can start going into, are the trailers and the trucks properly licensed? Do they have the current tabs? Is IFTA up to speed? Is the UCR up to speed? You start getting into some of those little nitty-gritty details after that. But that's always one thing I look for, is driver qualification files, and then the maintenance. How are we looking on our maintenance? Is everything kind of up to speed? Are our preventative maintenance is done? Do we have our annual inspections done? And that was one thing when I came over here to Etchberger, I was happy to see they really like their maintenance piece. So that was pretty easy. But I've walked into some companies where it's like, yikes, this is scary. Let's pull every truck off the road for a week. No, we didn't do that, but you kind of almost want to sometimes.
God, that's wild. And so you've been in logistics since, you said 1998? Is that what it was?
1998 is when I started off doing all the grunt labor. So my father has been in trucking my entire life. He was actually a driver and decided to get off the road when I was born in 19 something. And so then he got into trucking. I would say it, but I don't want to reveal myself I'm a millennial. So 1984. Anyways, but then he got into trucking, and so I grew up around trucking. I've been in all that. I've been in trucking for so long. When I started in trucking, you used to be able to smoke at your desk. That's how long ago it was. You just walk to these trucking companies, it'd just be a haze over it. I mean, I'm not even joking when I say I have literally seen dispatchers light a cigarette from their previous cigarette. Like they would just, light it up again. So I've been in for a while. But in 1998, my father decided to say, you need a job, and why don't you come mow the lawn, start unloading trailers, and just do all the grunt labor that they needed me to do. And so I started doing that at the trucking company he was at. And then I started washing trucks and washing trailers, and then I started fixing trailers. And then I decided, I'm going to go where there's air conditioning because these summers get kind of hot out here. And so I made the jump inside and worked for a trucking company that I was their driver manager, dispatcher, and then just kind of started making my rounds inside there and did dispatching. Like I said, I've done billing and accounting. I've done payroll, which I do not like at all. That was a short-lived job that I didn't even want to be in, but they needed somebody. But yeah, I've done IT for them. I think I've done everything in a trucking company that you could possibly do, except for actually drive a truck.
Yeah, I heard you say that, and me too. And with these trucks now being like automatic and stuff, here's like a shameful thing I can say. So I'm 31. All my life, all I did was play sports. Never really had to do. I had to mow the yard and stuff and chores, but like I was always told, like if you play sports, you're training, like you don't have to get a job. You're good and that eventually got me to college. It all worked out, right? But in that time, I didn't learn how to drive a stick. So if I'm driving, it's got to be automatic, and I need to learn how to drive a stick. But these semi trucks now, they're automatic. So listen, if somebody wants to get me behind the wheel, I'm ready to roll. I need to drive a truck so I can at least say I've done everything in this profession. What is your favorite aspect of logistics? Like what job was your favorite? And maybe it might be what you're doing now. And if it's what you're doing now, which one did you learn the most in that was able to progress your career?
So I do enjoy what I'm doing now, but I really enjoy the industry. And I know that might be kind of a cliche answer, but it really is true. I like this industry. Now, granted, I was born and raised in it, so I don't really know too much about other industries. I was in a woodworking shop for just a while, and that was fun. But I like the safety aspect. I think is really interesting. I like kind of putting pieces together and creating systems, and that's what safety is. It's just creating multiple systems in a trucking company to make it run more efficiently. But what I was doing previously, my father actually ended up starting his own trucking company, and so I was running that pretty much for him. It was just a small fleet, and so I was doing operations for that as well, and that was a whole different learning experience. Was like being able to run the operations, not just be a part of them, not just do. Because you get to some of these big trucking companies, they have their planners, they have their dispatchers, they have customer service guys, they've got the billing aspect. I was all that wrapped into one, and so I really got to fully understand like how a trucking company works. How do you get the load? How do you get the customer? How do you I had to find the dispatch system even to work with. So it's like, how do we organize all this? And then on top of that, then you got after the load, you got to do the billing. And then luckily I had experience in that, but you do the billing and then you got to make sure that you're doing part of the safety, which, like I said before, I was not paying that much attention to. But that was what really kind of really helped. Like that, I got to know so much about the trucking industry at that point, working with brokers, working with customers, what they're looking for, because that's a whole different language too. I mean, I know logistics and carriers are kind of on the same team, and I like to think we are, but we do speak somewhat of a different language, and so that was just kind of interesting to figure out, what they need versus what we need, and how to kind of work together. Because if you don't want to work together, it's just going to be chaos, and you're not going to make many friends. And I'm happy to say that I still got broker friends that I worked with, and but that was a good eye-opening experience. Is kind of learning everything all wrapped up into one.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I've learned a lot in this industry, and I learned a lot more over here on this side. When you get to manage a little bit and see a little bit more higher level, it opens your eyes to like what logistics really is in the supply chain from all the different perspectives. But because if you're in the battlefield and you're in the war, sometimes it's hard to see through the bullets, it's hard to see through the grass. Like you're out there, you're doing the same thing over and over again. You don't really get a chance to take a look back and see it. But I can definitely see how you learned a lot during that. And it's probably helped you a lot with the safety and compliance at this phase in your career as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that. I love that analogy because, when I was doing dispatching, the loads would just pop up on my board. I'd have no clue where they came from. I've, no clue if they're a broker, customer, whatever. They just pop up there. I sign it out and be done with it. But once you're able to take a step back and maybe get up on the horse, where all the generals are in the back, and kind of see, oh, that's why, we do this, or that's why we're not going, to this certain part of the country, and the rates just are good there right now. And those are things that in a bigger company as a dispatcher, you weren't privy to. That was literally above your pay grade, so you just didn't pay attention to it. But once you were able to step back, like I said, get up on your horse and kind of look around the battlefield and go, oh, that's how this works. Okay, that's why we're doing this and not that. And yeah, 100%. It has certainly helped me with my safety piece now, because the whole kind of the running joke is that safety and operations just don't mix well. And I'm sure to a certain degree that is right, because operations want to do something and safety has to step in and say that's illegal. No, we can't do that. But I like to think that I bring a different piece to the puzzle here now, and that I've got this operations background. Like I completely understand what they're trying to do. And now I want to figure out if there's a way. Now, I'm not going to do anything illegal, but I want to figure out if there's a way so that we can do that. I just don't want to go there to say, can't do it. Shut it down. We're not doing that. Well, okay, hang on a second. I know what you're trying to say. Let me see if we can do this here. So that the whole operations and the whole overall general background I have, I think has completely opened my eyes in safety and go, this is why we need to do this. This is what they're saying. Let's see if we can work on that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and I'm glad that's where you're at with it right now. So, hey, man, we're up on about 22 minutes. I know you're busy. We need to jump some things, too. I got one question for you. So I ask everybody this as we're jumping off, and it's, what's one tip you'd give to anyone entering the industry that you've learned?
Don't enter the industry. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's a good industry.
That's good. That's
good. Just run away. No. One tip to entering the industry. Here's the thing. I would say this. Just go into it. If you're brand new into the industry, go in without an attitude. Okay. Go in with your eyes open, your ears open, and just kind of take it in. Okay. Because here's one thing I've learned about the industry. Can I say a quick real story here?
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I worked at a trucking company a while back. And I sat down next to a guy. He was another dispatcher there, and we got to talking. And got to know his name or whatever. So, fast forward a week later, I'm on the phone with my dad. I said, yeah, I met this guy at the industry, or next to me, and this is his name. He's like, I worked with that guy 25 years ago at a different company. I was like, no way. It's such a small world. Like the trucking industry, it covers the 48 states and then Canada, Mexico, all that stuff. But it really is a very tight-knit community. There's a lot of people that I've run into from years ago that I've run into recently. So, I know a lot of younger people and myself, I'm, whatever. We tend to sometimes maybe burn bridges a little too early, or say, you're just a hater, I'm not going to listen. No, don't do that. Just be nice to everybody in the industry, because more than likely you will kind of come back in contact with them. And like I said, it's a very tight-knit industry. And so that's all I'd say. Just kind of go in without an attitude, no chip on your shoulder, just be willing to learn. And it's a good industry. It really is a good industry to be in. It's never going away. I'm just going to say that now. We're always going to need stuff to get moved. It might change. It might, look a little differently, but the trucking industry, the transportation industry will always be here. So just be nice, work hard, and you just never know who you're going to run into later down the road.
It's crazy how simple that is, though, but it's so true. Be nice and work hard. Yeah. If everybody would just be nice and work hard, it's crazy what we can get done politically as well. All right, man. Well, hey, thank you so much, Sam, for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Hit me up later if you want to come on, if you got anything to say or promote, or anything you need to get across, or anything that's come up in safety and compliance that maybe is like breaking news. We could come on, do like a 5-minute, hey, this is something you guys need to be knowing about as far as safety and compliance. When it comes to safety and compliance, I'm coming to you. So you let me know, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, brother. See you, man.